What I'm about to tell you sounds like science fiction, but it is anchored in timestamps, telemetry, logs, and data that has kept analysts awake for days. Today is March 2nd, 2026, and for the last 72 hours, I have been reviewing records from an event that officially never happened. On December 19th, 2025, at exactly 14 UTC, something occurred that forced physicists, intelligence agencies, and space agencies to confront a possibility they once dismissed as impossible. This is not about a comet drifting past Earth. This is not about a minor anomaly in deep space. This is about 3 seconds that changed the trajectory of human history. The object known as 3I Atlas did not simply pass through our solar system. It did not subtly shift course. For precisely 3 seconds, it interacted with our technology. To understand the scale, picture the entire global satellite network, Starlink satellites in low Earth orbit, GPS platforms in medium orbit, classified reconnaissance systems, scientific observatories, weather arrays, communication relays, thousands of independent machines built by different nations, operating on different frequencies, shielded against radiation and cyber intrusion. At 14:01 UTC, they all experienced the same event. They went dark. This was not a glitch. It was not a solar flare. It was not a geomagnetic storm. Telemetry shows a synchronized, targeted drainage of lithium-ion reserves across approximately 4,800 active satellites. The main bus voltage on these spacecraft dropped from standard operating levels straight to zero. And here is the critical point. Batteries do not empty instantaneously. A short circuit in space would cause thermal runaway, overheating, and visible explosions. We saw none of that. No heat spikes, no debris fields. The stored energy simply vanished. The precision required to target thousands of objects moving at roughly 17,000 miles per hour and drain their power without damaging their circuits defies any natural explanation. The first law of thermodynamics tells us energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. So where did the energy go? Observatories in Chile detected a reverse polarity absorption field centered on 3I Atlas at the exact millisecond the blackout occurred. Instead of emitting radiation, the object behaved like a sink, pulling energy inward. Independent confirmations came from NASA, the European Space Agency, and even China's Space Administration after their Tiangong station briefly lost power. For 3 seconds, the world's orbital infrastructure was silent. GPS signals drifted. Financial systems desynchronized. Military command centers escalated to high alert, fearing an electromagnetic attack. Yet the discharge graphs reveal something stranger. Instead of a gradual decline, the battery output formed a perfect vertical drop, a square wave. At 14 hours and 1 second, systems were fully powered. At 14 hours and 2 seconds, they were at zero. This suggests not chemical depletion, but direct manipulation of electromagnetic forces at scale, something comparable to superconductive tunneling, a phenomenon we have only observed at atomic levels. Then, at 14 hours and 4 seconds UTC, the impossible happened again. The power returned, instantly, not as smooth direct current, but as a jagged, modulated surge oscillating at 1,420 megahertz, the hydrogen line frequency long considered a universal marker for interstellar communication. The satellites did not simply reboot, they were force-fed, a signal embedded within the returning energy. Modern systems survived and began recording. Older units suffered fuse damage, but across the network, a new file appeared in memory buffers where none had existed before. This was not destruction, it was transmission. And if 3I Atlas intended to eliminate our infrastructure, nothing would have survived those 3 seconds. Instead, our satellites became carriers, which means this was not an attack, it was a download. If what happened was a download, then the next question becomes unavoidable. What exactly was delivered? When engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and SpaceX began analyzing the voltage logs from the recharge event, they expected electrical noise, random interference caused by a chaotic energy surge. Instead, they found structure. The returning power was not random current. It was patterned. The electrons flowing back into thousands of lithium-ion cells were oscillating with precision at 4.2 terahertz, a frequency that sits in the narrow band between microwave and infrared radiation. This is not a frequency we casually generate. It requires extraordinary control. Imagine plugging your phone into a wall outlet and discovering that the electricity charging it is carrying a message hidden inside the waveform. The energy that restored the satellites behaved like that. It looked like power, but embedded in the oscillation was a data stream. Analysts at the NSA examined the fluctuations and discovered the voltage spikes were not noise. They were quantized states forming a digital structure, but it was not binary, it was trinary. Instead of simple ones and zeros, the signal used 3 states: positive voltage, negative voltage, and an exact null state lasting 1 nanosecond. That third state dramatically increases information density. In 2026, our most advanced quantum computers are only beginning to simulate trinary efficiency. Whoever designed this signal operates at a level far beyond our current architecture. In just 3 seconds of recharging, approximately 47 petabytes of data were transferred into our orbital infrastructure. To understand the scale, that amount of information is equivalent to thousands of large digital libraries combined, delivered wirelessly across vacuum using our own batteries as receivers. The bandwidth required exceeds anything currently achieved on Earth, and the method of transfer suggests spintronics, encoding information in the spin of electrons rather than merely their charge. That field remains experimental in our laboratories. Yet here, it was deployed on a planetary scale. Then came the encryption. The data block was sealed behind a mathematical framework unlike conventional security systems. It did not rely on prime factorization as in RSA encryption. Instead, it was structured around dynamic non-Euclidean geometric fractals. Each attempt to map the key caused it to evolve. The cipher reacted to intrusion attempts, reshaping itself. It behaved less like a locked file and more like an adaptive intelligence defending its own contents. Agencies across the United States, Europe, Britain, and Israel attempted decryption. All failed. However, one portion of the data remained accessible, the header. Like the subject line of an email, it was broadcast in simple binary. Initially, analysts assumed it was meaningless. Then, a graduate student identified the pattern. The numbers corresponded to pulsar frequencies, 14 specific pulsars used by humanity in 1977 on the golden records attached to the Voyager probes. Those pulsars formed a cosmic map showing our position in the galaxy. Decades ago, we effectively told the universe where we are. The header from 3I Atlas quoted those same 14 pulsars, and then it added a 15th. When astronomers triangulated the additional coordinate, they did not find a distant galaxy. They found a location within the Oort cloud, the distant icy shell surrounding our solar system. The implication was immediate and unsettling. This was not a random visitor from deep space acknowledging our existence. The extra coordinate suggested proximity. It suggested presence. The object drained our power, returned it with a trinary encoded archive, and began its message by referencing our own cosmic introduction. It knew Voyager, it knew our map, and by adding a new coordinate inside our own solar boundary, it implied something else. We are not alone in our neighborhood. Which leads to the next question that no official briefing addressed. If 3I Atlas is a probe, then who sent it? And if the header is a receipt acknowledging our message, what lies inside the 47 petabytes waiting behind that living cipher? For weeks after the December event, the official explanation was silence disguised as routine. Agencies classified the blackout as a solar irregularity. Internally, they knew better. The satellites were still carrying the encrypted archive embedded deep inside navigation buffers, communication relays, reconnaissance platforms. No one dared execute it. In cybersecurity, the first rule is simple. Never open a file from an unknown source. But on February 27, 2026, at 3:14 UTC, the file opened itself. The trigger occurred inside the European Space Agency's Gaia Observatory, a spacecraft designed to map the Milky Way with extreme precision. Engineers did not initiate the process. A subroutine activated that was never part of the launch code. It originated from the December transmission. For 19 minutes, Gaia stopped surveying distant stars. It pivoted. Without human input, it rotated its telescopes toward a specific region of near-solar space cataloged as empty. The coordinates corresponded exactly to the 15th pulsar reference embedded in the header. Ground control assumed malfunction until the telemetry confirmed otherwise. Gaia's systems were operating within normal mechanical parameters. There was no external override. The instruction had come from inside its memory banks. The 47 petabytes were not static information. They were executable logic. When the data returned to Earth, the image file was partially encrypted again, but raw telemetry leaked through internal channels before containment protocols tightened. What Gaia recorded was not a fleet, not a moving object, not an explosion. It was structure. At first glance, the region appeared dark. Optical telescopes saw almost nothing because whatever occupied that space absorbed nearly all incident radiation. But Gaia measures micro-arcsecond distortions in starlight. It detects gravitational lensing, the bending of light around mass. And there it was, a geometrically precise lattice, vast in scale, reflecting less than 0.1% of visible light. Not rock, not ice, not natural debris. The symmetry alone defied entropy. The 47 petabyte archive had not been a greeting. It was a key and instruction set directing our own instruments where to look. The realization spread quickly through secure channels. 3I Atlas may not be an explorer. It may not even be a messenger. It may be maintenance, an automated diagnostic unit checking on infrastructure already in place. The lattice detected near the Oort cloud sits in a position consistent with a containment perimeter. Its mass distribution and energy absorption profile suggest engineering on a scale we cannot replicate. Consider the implications carefully. December 19, 2025. Confirmed blackout and recharge. 47 petabytes uploaded. February 27, 2026. Encryption self-executes, redirecting Gaia. Confirmed gravitational anomalies reveal a stealth megastructure at the edge of our solar system. These are documented telemetry events stored across multiple agencies. The remaining question is motive. Why reveal it? If this is a quarantine barrier, why show us the bars? If this is a monitoring grid, why provide coordinates? Advanced civilizations, if they exist, would understand psychological impact. They would understand risk assessment. Revealing presence introduces instability. unless instability is the goal, or unless development stage has been reached. Three possibilities dominate internal analysis. First, quarantine. Humanity is considered a potential threat, confined until maturity. Second, observation. A zoo model where we are specimens under study. Third, protection. A nursery shielding a developing species from external danger. There is no comfortable middle ground between those interpretations. As you watch this, Gaia remains fixed on those coordinates. Spectral analysis continues. In 14 days, the James Webb Space Telescope is scheduled for infrared confirmation. Multiple ground-based arrays are recalibrating to detect subtle shifts in gravitational curvature. Every hour adds resolution. We believed 3I Atlas was passing through. The data suggests it was checking in. And if that lattice is real, then our solar system may not be open space, it may be enclosed space. Which brings us to the final development. What happened after Gaia kept staring into the dark? As Gaia continued to transmit refined measurements, the picture became harder to dismiss as instrumentation error. The lattice was not a blur, it was repeating geometry. Triangular segments interlocked in a pattern that extended across millions of kilometers. The gravitational lensing signature showed mass distribution consistent with artificial placement rather than random aggregation. Natural bodies cluster irregularly. This structure formed angles too precise, spacing too consistent, curvature too deliberate. Infrared sweeps revealed almost no thermal signature. Whatever material composed, the lattice absorbed and redistributed energy with extraordinary efficiency. It did not glow from reflected sunlight. It did not radiate waste heat in detectable bands. That level of control implies advanced thermodynamic management technology capable of operating near theoretical efficiency limits. In simpler terms, it was engineered to remain unseen. Engineers cross-checked for software corruption. Independent observatories were tasked to confirm coordinates without knowledge of the initial findings. The results aligned. Subtle distortions in starlight converged on the same location. Even radio telescopes detected faint scattering, consistent with a large-scale structure interfering with background cosmic radiation. Inside secure briefings, terminology shifted. The phrase object of interest became installation. Analysts began modeling potential purposes. One hypothesis described it as a boundary marker, a shell segment of a much larger enclosure. Another suggested it functioned as a monitoring grid, capturing outbound electromagnetic emissions from within the solar system. Our radio broadcasts, radar sweeps, and spacecraft signals may all pass through it. The most unsettling projection came from energy modeling. If 3I Atlas could drain gigawatts from thousands of satellites simultaneously, then the lattice likely operates on a scale exponentially greater. Atlas may have been a mobile node, temporarily linking our infrastructure to the larger system. A handshake, a systems check, and here is the detail that intensified debate. After Gaia locked onto the structure, the lattice emitted a faint but measurable modulation at 1,420 MHz, the same hydrogen line frequency embedded in the recharge surge. The pattern was not continuous. It pulsed once every 14 minutes, subtle but deliberate. It was not random. Mathematicians began mapping the intervals. The pulses followed a ratio approximating Fibonacci progression adjusted for relativistic delay. That kind of temporal structuring implies design. Nature produces patterns, but this level of synchronized timing tied to prior communication events suggests coordination. If the lattice is part of a larger containment network, then Atlas interacting with our satellites could represent a threshold test. We sent Voyager decades ago carrying a map of our location. We announced ourselves. The header of the transmission quoted that map back to us and pointed toward the lattice. Now, the lattice appears to acknowledge detection. There is another layer to consider. The self-executing code within the 47 petabytes did not overwrite Gaia's primary systems. It operated within sandboxed architecture, respecting mechanical constraints. That restraint suggests intention not to damage but to reveal. Whoever engineered the transmission understands both physics and software safeguards. Military analysts remain cautious. If the structure functions as a barrier, it could theoretically restrict outbound spacecraft beyond certain velocities. We have not yet sent probes far enough to test interaction with that exact region since the discovery. Plans are being drafted quietly. Publicly, no announcement has been made. Privately, simulations are running non-stop. If this is containment, it is subtle containment. If this is protection, it is silent protection. Either way, the existence of a megastructure at our solar boundary reframes every assumption about cosmic isolation. And just as agencies were preparing deeper analysis, another anomaly appeared inside the decrypted fragments of the 47 petabytes fragments that were finally beginning to decode themselves. The message was not finished. It was unfolding in stages. And what emerged next shifted the narrative from observation to participation. The partial decryption did not occur because our supercomputers suddenly became more powerful. It happened because the cipher allowed it. Small segments of the archive began resolving into readable mathematical constructs, almost as if a timer had expired. The first accessible block was not text, not imagery, not audio. It was simulation data equations describing gravitational harmonics between the lattice and our sun. Astrophysicists fed the equations into modeling software, expecting abstract outputs. Instead, the simulation generated a projection, a dynamic field surrounding the solar system, tuned to counter specific high-energy particle trajectories. In simpler language, the lattice appears calibrated to deflect or absorb cosmic radiation bursts that would otherwise impact interplanetary regions. Historical solar flare data was overlaid against the model. Several past extreme events aligned with predicted interference patterns. If accurate, this suggests the structure may serve as a shield, but shields imply threat. The next decrypted fragment deepened the complexity. Embedded within trinary sequences were star charts beyond the 15 pulsar references. These charts did not mark distant galaxies. They highlighted regions of intense gamma activity within our galactic neighborhood areas associated with unstable stellar remnants. When projected forward in time using the provided algorithms, some of these regions corresponded with trajectories that would intersect near our solar boundary in thousands of years. The implication unsettled even the most skeptical analysts. The lattice may not be a cage. It may be infrastructure designed to mitigate cosmic hazards on timescales beyond a single civilization's lifespan. Yet another fragment contradicted simple protection narratives. Hidden inside the data were schematics not of the lattice itself, but of energy manipulation at scale. The designs resembled theoretical fusion confinement breakthroughs we have struggled to achieve. Magnetic field stabilization sequences, plasma containment efficiencies, and superconductive routing methods appeared in mathematical shorthand. If interpreted correctly, they could accelerate our own energy development by decades. This is where caution intensified. Advanced technology shared prematurely can destabilize societies. A gift can also be leveraged. Then came the most controversial fragment. It was a pattern, not equations, not coordinates, but a sequence resembling biological neural mapping. When processed through machine learning frameworks, the output resembled connectivity diagrams similar to mammalian cortical structures. not identical, but conceptually parallel. It suggested interface compatibility. The theory emerging from closed-door discussions is this. The transmission may be phased communication. First, reveal presence. Second, demonstrate protection or containment. Third, provide technological scaffolding. Fourth, prepare for interaction. Why in stages? Because sudden revelation of superior intelligence could fracture global stability. Gradual exposure allows adaptation. Remember the December event. Atlas drained our satellites without destruction. It returned power fully restored. That restraint signals measured intent. The February activation redirected Gaia, but did not override control permanently. Again, restraint. And now, the decrypted fragments offer tools rather than commands. Skeptics argue we are interpreting noise as design, but the data coherence resists dismissal. Multiple independent teams across continents, unaware of each other's intermediate findings, have reproduced consistent outputs from the same trinary base. One more anomaly has surfaced. The lattice pulses detected every 14 minutes have shifted slightly in frequency since partial decryption began. The change is minimal fractions of a percent, but measurable. It is as though the system registered our analysis. If that is coincidence, it is statistically improbable. If it is response, then the interaction has moved beyond observation. Which leads us to the final development unfolding right now, an adjustment in telescope alignment orders that suggests humanity may be about to initiate its first deliberate reply. 3 days ago, a quiet directive moved across major space agencies. No public announcement, no headlines, just a coordinated instruction. Align deep space transmitters at 1,420 MHz, the hydrogen line frequency, and aim them at the 15th pulsar coordinate embedded in the original Atlas header. For the first time since December 19, 2025, humanity is preparing to respond. The debate was intense. Some scientists urged silence, warning that if the lattice is containment, transmitting could be misinterpreted. Others argued that contact already began when our Voyager probes announced our location in 1977. Atlas quoted that message back to us. The exchange did not start with them, it started with us. The planned transmission is deliberate and mathematical. No languages, no symbols of culture, only universal constants, prime numbers, extended decimals of pi, and hydrogen spectral markers. The pulse timing mirrors the Fibonacci-based interval detected from the lattice itself. This is not a greeting, it is acknowledgement. Meanwhile, infrared scans from the James Webb Space Telescope confirm thermal behavior consistent with engineered material energy absorbed and redistributed with extreme efficiency. The structure remains silent but measurable. The lattice pulses continue, slightly altered since partial decryption began. Here is what we know. Satellites drained and recharged in 3 seconds. 47 petabytes were uploaded. Gaia was redirected. A megastructure was confirmed. Partial data suggests shielding, advanced energy science, and long-term galactic planning. We are no longer speculating about distant life. We are observing infrastructure. Whether it is quarantine, protection, or preparation, one fact remains. We are being watched or we are being guided. If you want real updates as this develops, subscribe now and stay with me. The next signal could change everything.